You are in a room, and you believe you are among friends. The conversation is light. The laughter is easy. You feel seen, understood, perhaps even admired. But beneath the surface of every smile, behind every compliment, a silent, relentless calculation is taking place. A calculation you are not a part of. While you are navigating the world of words and intentions, everyone else is navigating the hidden world of effects and advantages. You are playing checkers, believing it to be a game of camaraderie, while the true game being played around you is a form of psychological chess, and you are not a player. You are a piece. This is the unsettling truth that Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power forces you to confront from its very first page. It is not a book that asks if you want power. It declares, with the cold, unblinking gaze of a historian, that you are already in its arena. The only choice you have is whether to be its victim or its student. The central paradox that Greene explores is as ancient as human society and as personal as your last forgotten birthday. It is this: to live a good, moral, and trusting life. You are taught to be humble, honest, and open. You are taught that hard work and genuine talent are the keys to advancement. You are taught that virtue is its own reward. And yet, when you look at the arc of history, at the courtiers who rose to rule empires, the disgraced advisors who fell from grace, the colleagues who effortlessly climbed the ladder you feel stuck on, you see a different story playing out. You see that the openly trusting are often betrayed. The tirelessly diligent are often overlooked. The genuinely talented are often sidelined by the politically savvy. The world, it seems, rewards not the purest heart, but the most strategic mind. This is the core contradiction that the 48 Laws of Power dissects. The chasm between the world as we are taught it should be, and the world as it actually operates. Why does the most qualified person so rarely get the promotion? How did that individual of mediocre talent maneuver themselves into a position of unshakable influence? Why do some figures from history, like the cunning courtier Talleyrand, survive revolution after revolution, king after emperor? While more principled men are led to the guillotine, the book posits a terrifying, yet electrifying, answer. Because there is a grammar to power, a set of underlying rules that govern human interaction in any competitive environment. Most of us are illiterate in this language. We listen to the words people say, but we are deaf to the silent strategies they are enacting. We see their actions, but we are blind to the timeless plays they are executing. This blindness is not innocence. It is a vulnerability. It is the reason you sometimes leave a conversation feeling strangely depleted, or why a project you spearheaded somehow earns credit for someone else. You are experiencing the effects of power dynamics without understanding the laws that govern them. But what if you could learn this grammar? What if you could see the hidden board on which the game is truly being played? This is the locked door in your mind that Greene's book aims to open. It is not a door that leads to a sunny, peaceful garden of positive affirmation. It is an entrance into a darker, more complex library of human nature, a library filled with the case studies of Borgias, seducers, philosophers, and con artists. To open is to accept a dangerous education. For the next hour, we will not be summarizing a simple self-help book. We will be decoding a manual of strategic reality. We will venture into the shadowy architecture of social dynamics that Greene has meticulously documented, drawing from thousands of years of history. The journey will be unsettling. It will challenge your deepest assumptions about fairness, morality, and human decency. It will make you reevaluate every interaction, every success, and every betrayal you have ever experienced. And so we begin at the beginning, with the most fundamental question the book forces you to ask yourself, a question that will haunt you long after this video ends. In the quiet, unspoken transactions of your daily life, in your office, your social circles, even your family, are you the player or are you the piece? The answer, which the next section will reveal, lies in understanding the hidden disease that Greene diagnoses at the root of all political failure. A disease of perception that keeps you powerless, a disease you likely don't even know you have. The disease is not a virus or a physical ailment. It is a blindness, a sentimental, self-indulgent, and dangerously naive view of human nature. Robert Greene's diagnosis, the foundational argument upon which all 48 laws are built, is that our greatest vulnerability is our desperate, almost childlike, need to believe that people are fundamentally good, that their intentions are pure, and that the world ultimately rewards virtue. We are addicted to the fairy tale. We project our own morality onto others, assuming they operate by the same code of ethics, the same sense of fairness, the same loyalty. This, Greene argues with chilling historical precedent, is not just an error. It is a form of strategic suicide. The hidden problem that the 48 laws of power exposes is the toxic and irrational aversion to acknowledging the darker, self-interested, and often manipulative currents that truly drive human behavior. This is not a new idea, but Greene gives it a razor's edge. He connects his argument to a long, unflinching lineage of philosophical and psychological thought. This is the world not of Plato's ideal forms, but of Nietzsche's will to power. It is the practical application of Machiavelli's observation that a man who strives for goodness in all he does is bound to come to ruin among so many who are not good. It is a forced confrontation with the Jungian shadow, not just our personal shadow, but the collective shadow that operates in boardrooms, government halls, and social gatherings. We are taught to repress this shadow, to pretend it doesn't exist in ourselves or others. But by refusing to look at it, we grant it ultimate power over us. The shadow does not disappear. It simply operates from the darkness, where we cannot see it, cannot predict it, and cannot defend against it. You have felt this diagnosis manifest in your own life, even if you haven't had the words for it. It is the gut-wrenching feeling of betrayal when a colleague you considered a friend quietly undermines you for a promotion. In that moment, you are a victim of your own diagnosis. You believed in the friendship. They believed in the opportunity. It is the simmering frustration you feel when a less capable, but more politically astute peer receives credit for your work. You were focused on the quality of the work itself. They were focused on the perception of the work. You were playing the game of meritocracy. They were playing the game of power. The consequence of ignoring this diagnosis is a life of quiet confusion and recurring victimhood. You will continue to be shocked again and again by behavior that is, in fact, entirely predictable. You will attribute your setbacks to bad luck or other people's inexplicable malice, never understanding that you are simply violating the immutable laws of a game you refuse to admit you're playing. Greene substantiates this not with theory, but with blood-soaked history. He forces you to stare at the evidence. Look at the court of Louis XIV, a viper's nest of intrigue where a single misstep, a single display of uncontrolled emotion or naive trust could lead to exile or ruin. The courtiers who survived and thrived were not the most virtuous or the most talented artists. They were the most adept students of human nature. They understood that everyone, from the king to the lowly servant, was acting in their own self-interest, often masked by a performance of loyalty or piety. This is not cynicism for its own sake. It is realism. To walk into that court believing in the inherent goodness of man was to walk into a battlefield without armor. Your modern office, your social media network, your community organization, these are the Versailles of today. The stakes may not be imprisonment, but they are your time, your energy, your reputation, your potential. The currency is not titles and land, but influence and autonomy. The tension here is immense. To accept this diagnosis feels like losing a part of your soul. It feels like surrendering to a cold, bleak worldview. But Greene's proposition is that this acceptance is not the end of goodness. It is the beginning of true agency. The problem is not that people are evil. The problem is that they are human, And humans are complex creatures, driven by a spectrum of motives, many of which are selfish. To ignore this is to live in a fantasy. The consequence of clinging to this fantasy is a life spent as a passive object, buffeted by the hidden strategies of others. But what if you could see the world as it is? What if you could understand the hidden architecture of these interactions? The prescription for this disease of naivete is not to become a monster, but to develop a form of vision that allows you to see the monsters and the angels and all the complicated beings in between for what they truly are. The path to this clarity, however, requires us to descend further into the labyrinth, to witness the terrifying and unseen consequences of a world built upon these laws. This is the world you actually live in. A world not of random events, but of calculated moves and strategic landscapes. The consequence of the naive blindness Greene diagnosed is that you navigate this world as a tourist, bewildered by the local customs, while the powerful are its native inhabitants. They understand the terrain. They built it. Every social circle, every corporate hierarchy, every online community is a silent testament to the relentless, unconscious application of the 48 laws. The laws are the invisible architecture of your reality. They are the reason certain patterns repeat with the grim inevitability of a Greek tragedy. The promotion never goes to the most competent. The revolutionary becomes the very tyrant he sought to overthrow. The trusted advisor falls from grace the moment he appears too indispensable. These are not anomalies. They are outcomes. They are the gravitational pull of power dynamics in action. Consider the law that dictates: court attention at all cost. The consequence of ignoring this is obscurity. We are taught that good work speaks for itself, but in a world saturated with noise, this is a recipe for being overlooked. Greene illustrates this with the story of the brilliant Renaissance painter Titian. He wasn't merely the best. He was a master of spectacle, staging lavish public displays of his work, ensuring his name was always on the lips of the powerful. The consequence for his rivals, perhaps more technically skilled but less strategically brilliant, was historical oblivion. Now, look at your digital life. The influencer, the viral post, the controversial headline, all are brutal, modern enactments of this ancient law. Your silence, your reluctance to play this game, is not seen as virtue. It is seen as a lack of presence, a lack of power. It is a voluntary withdrawal from the battlefield of perception. Or take the law that warns: never outshine the master. This is not a suggestion to be mediocre. It is a stark warning about the psychology of those above you. The consequence of violating this law is often a swift and brutal downfall. Greene points to the fate of Louis XIV's finance minister, Nicolas Fouquet. To celebrate his new chateau, Vaux-le-Vicomte, Fouquet threw a party of such staggering opulence that it outshone the Sun King himself. He believed he was honoring his monarch. He was, in reality, signing his own arrest warrant. He was convicted of embezzlement and imprisoned for life. The consequence here is the utter annihilation of a brilliant career, not for a crime, but for a strategic miscalculation of a superior's ego. Can you not feel the same tension in your own world? The unspoken rule to let your boss take the credit for your idea? The careful curation of your success so it doesn't cast a shadow on those above you? To ignore this is to believe the official org chart matters more than the fragile human ego that sits at its top. The most profound consequence, however, is the slow psychic erosion of self-sovereignty. When you are unaware of these laws, you are constantly reacting. You are perpetually surprised. You are emotionally tossed about by events you don't understand. A cutting remark from a colleague ruins your week. A perceived snub sends you into a spiral of self-doubt. You are like a sailor who doesn't understand the winds or the tides, blaming the ocean for your shipwreck. The world feels chaotic, unfair, and personally hostile. This is the ultimate power of the laws. They create a reality for the unaware that feels random and cruel, while for the aware, It is a landscape of predictable cause and effect. The stakes of remaining unaware are nothing less than your autonomy, your peace of mind, and your ability to shape your own destiny. This is the silent, shaping force of the problem. It builds worlds and breaks lives according to a logic we refuse to learn. But understanding this architecture is only the first step. It reveals the prison, but it does not provide the key. To see the game board is one thing. To learn how to move your pieces is another. The prescription, the path to turning this terrifying knowledge from a source of paranoia into a tool of empowerment, requires a radical shift in perspective. It requires you to stop being a passive piece on the board and to begin, consciously and deliberately, to play the game. So, how do you move from being a piece to becoming a player? How do you transform this chilling diagnosis of human nature from a source of anxiety into a source of unshakable agency? Robert Greene's prescription is not a single pill, but a complete regimen of strategic thought. It is a call to embrace what he terms the ultimate power game. This is not about becoming a cartoonish villain, twirling a mustache and manipulating everyone in sight. That is the path of the amateur, the path of someone who has read the laws but misunderstood their soul. The true prescription, the radical shift in perspective, is to become a sovereign self. It is to master your emotions, to control your timing, and to see the world with a calm, detached, and analytical clarity that allows you to navigate its currents rather than be drowned by them. The framework of the 48 laws is the practical toolkit for building this sovereignty. The core of this mindset shift is a move from reactivity to proactivity. Most people are reactive creatures. They are puppets whose strings are pulled by insults, by flattery, by moments of anger and bursts of pride. The sovereign self, however, understands that power lies in the pause between stimulus and response. This is the book's profound link to Stoic philosophy. It is not what happens to you, but your judgment of what happens and your strategic response to it that defines your power. When you are insulted, the reactive person lashes out, revealing their insecurity. The sovereign self, perhaps enacting Law 38, think as you like, but behave like others, smiles, says nothing, and files the information away. Understanding the insulter has revealed the weakness. Your emotional state is no longer a weather vane spinning in the winds of other people's actions. It becomes a fortified citadel from which you can observe the battlefield with calm eyes. Greene illustrates this with a powerful metaphor woven throughout the book: the difference between the courtier and the fool. The fool is reactive, emotional, and real. He speaks his mind, follows every impulse, and is tolerated for his entertainment value. But he has no real power. He is a diversion. The courtier, by contrast, is the master of self-control and perception. He understands that his words and actions are strategic tools, not emotional release valves. He practices Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. He knows that a single moment of lost composure can shatter years of carefully built perception. To embrace this prescription is to stop being the fool in your own life's court. It is to understand that your reputation, your appearance of calm, your air of self-sufficiency, are tangible assets more valuable than any single opinion or fleeting feeling. This path to resolution is profoundly counterintuitive. Our instincts often lead us astray. Our instinct when attacked is to defend ourselves loudly. Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. Our instinct when we have a great idea is to take all the credit. Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. A law often misinterpreted as theft, but in its deeper sense, about being the strategic force that orchestrates success. Our instinct when we gain power is to show it off. Law 46. Never appear too perfect. Greene's prescription demands you reverse these instincts. It asks you to see the long game in every interaction. It is the difference between a sprinter and a master chess player. The sprinter runs on instinct and raw speed. The chess player wins by thinking several moves ahead, by controlling the center of the board, and by sacrificing pawns to protect the queen. The feeling this prescription creates is not one of malevolent glee, but of immense, quiet empowerment. It is the feeling of the sailor who has finally learned to read the stars and the charts. The ocean has not become less dangerous, but you are no longer at its mercy. You understand the storms, you can anticipate the doldrums, and you can plot a course to your chosen destination. You are let in on the secret that power is not a birthright or a gift. It is a skill, a discipline. It is the ability to impose your will upon reality, not through force, but through an unbreakable understanding of the levers that move the world and the people in it. But this knowledge, this formidable toolkit, leads to one final, terrifying, and transformative question. Once you have this power, what is the ultimate truth of wielding it? What is the final, sobering responsibility that comes with seeing the world as it truly is? The ultimate truth that the 48 laws of power delivers is not a law, but a warning. It is not a technique, but a profound and sobering responsibility. After you have learned to see the hidden board, after you have mastered your emotions and begun to play the game with skill, you arrive at the book's final chilling revelation. Absolute power is not the goal. Absolute awareness is. The game never ends. The moment you believe you have won, the moment you drop your guard in a flush of victory, or rest on the laurels of your reputation, you have already begun to lose. The ultimate power is the power to remain in the game perpetually. It is the understanding that you are never safe, only strategically secure. This is the paradigm shift Greene intends, a permanent state of conscious, calm, and clear-eyed engagement with the world, free from the illusions that breed vulnerability. This is the wisdom that separates the lasting powers from the transient ones. Look at the fate of those who peaked too early, who believed their power was a permanent state, the Joseph Stalins, the many corporate CEOs felled by hubris. They violated the meta law that governs all others. Master your timing, Law 35. But timing is more than knowing when to strike. It is knowing when to withdraw, when to feign weakness, when to let your enemies hang themselves with the rope you have subtly provided. The sovereign self understands that power is a fluid, not a solid. It ebbs and flows. The goal is not to become a mighty, immovable rock, which will eventually be worn down by the relentless sea, but to become the sea itself, able to flow around obstacles, to appear calm or stormy as it serves your purpose, and to hold an unimaginable depth beneath a surface that reveals only what you choose. This final synthesis ties all the previous sections together. The initial paradox, the clash between the world as it should be and the world as it is resolved not by choosing one over the other, but by developing a dual consciousness. You can hold your personal moral code internally, while understanding and navigating the often amoral reality of power dynamics externally. This is the essence of strategic sophistication. It is the application of Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. You are not surrendering your soul. You are protecting it by building a strategic fortress around it. The diagnosis of naivete is cured by this vigilant awareness. The consequences of the laws are no longer things that happen to you, but patterns you can observe, predict, and, when necessary, orchestrate. The book's lasting impact, then, is not a list of 48 tricks. It is the installation of a new operating system for your psyche. After turning the final page, your worldview is permanently altered. You can no longer unsee the strategies playing out in the news, in your workplace, in your family gatherings. A compliment is no longer just a compliment. It is a potential move. A moment of silence is no longer just awkward. It is a tactical pause. This is the transformation Greene offers, to move from a state of passive wonderment at the chaos of life to a state of active, intelligent observation. You become a reader of the secret language of power. And so, we end where we began. but you are no longer the same. You are in the room again, but now you can hear the silent calculations. You can see the hidden org. The laughter is still light. The conversation still easy, but you are now aware of the deeper currents. The choice has been made. You have chosen to be a student. You have chosen to see. This knowledge is dangerous, yes, but its greatest danger was always in your ignorance of it. The final poetic truth is that the ultimate power this book grants is the power of sight. And with that sight comes the grave and lonely responsibility of the player, who can never again pretend they are just a piece. The game is long. The board is set. You have been taught the rules. The only question that remains is how you will choose to play. As I reflect on the book's teachings, I'm reminded that empowerment is a journey, not a destination. It's about taking small steps every day to reclaim our power and live a more authentic life. I think that's what's so powerful about this book. It offers a roadmap for that journey and a reminder that we're not alone. If you're feeling stuck or powerless, I highly recommend checking out this book. Its message is simple yet profound. You have the power to create the life you want. Don't let anyone or anything tell you otherwise. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any thoughts on the book or your own experiences with feeling powerful, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Also, if you're interested in more personal development content, be sure to check out my next video on another book.